Welcome back, peeps, to another edition of Views from the Edge. This is Oliver Hoffman. You know, I saw on Facebook the other day this beautiful meme, and it really worked for me, right? Because what you have here was this dog. I mean, it's the cutest dog you ever seen. Well, his ears, kind of up, and he's standing on the edge of this cliff. Or he's sitting there on the edge of this cliff. Maybe it's the Grand Canyon, maybe not. Maybe it's Bryce Canyon, but he's in the sunset or the sunrise, and he's looking out over this vast empty space, and he's asking himself, what if I never find out who's a good boy? Well, really? And I mean, who among us would not give that dog a hug, right? I mean, who wouldn't tell him that he's a good boy? After all, I mean, we believe in his innocence, and we trust in his innocence. After all, he's only an animal, right? There's no duplicity in him. He's not neurotic. He's not a threat to the fragility of our own goodness. I mean, he doesn't give a flying rat's patoot whether we are fighting for world justice or prefer sitting on the couch watching TV. I mean, it just doesn't make any difference to a dog, right? I mean, basically what I'm saying is it costs us absolutely nothing to love him. But how unlike that dog is dark, treacherous, frightening territory, which to us is another human being. Would we extend the same courtesy to each other that we would extend to one of our pets? Would we dare to give each other a love that asks for nothing in return? Because, when you give a love that is unconditional, right, there's nothing left of it once it's given. It's not something that you can put a price tag on and say, well, I gave you this, what are you going to give me in return? Well, we can, and after tremendous struggles, some of us actually get to that point where we can look at another person and say, I love you. Right? I mean, that's one of the most frightening things to do. I mean, it's much easier to die for your highfalutin convictions, but to actually go up to another human being and tell them that you actually give a shit, right? That's hard. Because, what it does, it wreaks havoc with our political correctness. And our political correctness, I mean, when you get right down to it, it just masks the shame and the guilt that we feel, regarding what we think of as our lost innocence. Because unlike the dog, we don't believe in our own innocence and in the goodness of our own nature as creatures. So it's much easier to love an animal, right, or an idea than it is to love and approach and be vulnerable to that credible messiness which is another human being. Because really when we doubt our own capacity to give of ourselves in love, what we're really saying, is that we need to hide because we're not who we think we are, and we don't want anybody to see this. So, I mean, we can talk a blue streak about how spiritual we are, or about our concern for social justice issues, or about our pet causes, but it means little enough if in disbelieving in our own fundamental innocence before God, before all of creation. That when we turn around disbelieving that and treat each other in the same way that we treat ourselves. I mean, what? With formulas and recipes and scripts and expectations and imprecations and demands, but rarely, if ever, do we approach ourselves with the freshness and the vitality that characterizes any action that comes from our heart. You know, because the only way you can come from your heart, right, to stand before God, before God's judgment, that comes from having nothing left to protect. So, as I say again, it's much easier to die for one's principles because, you know, we're not in those principles. We're identified with them. But what's invested is not who we really are, how we really see ourselves. That person that we don't show to the world, right? That's the one that has the capacity to love. And that doesn't give us an excuse to be total a-holes with everybody that we meet. No. What it means is that we have the courage of our convictions, called walking our talk. So, peeps, that was a few more thoughts on this, that, and the other thing. Oh, peace out. See you next time.